Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to this week's TellyCast. On this week's show, we're at the TellyCast Brand-Funded Entertainment Summit, our own event as part of Advertising Week Europe. We're talking to the movers and shakers of the brand-funded content industry. For more videos on brand-funded content and content creation, just click on the link below.
TellyCast.
So I'm here with a familiar face from the digital content world, Jordan Schwarzenberger from Arcade Media, co-manager of the Sidemen. How are you doing, Jordan?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm really good. We're getting towards the end of the day now. It's been an amazing day here at the TellyCast Brand-Funded Entertainment Summit with Advertising Week Europe. So it's been a fantastic time. Great to have you involved and on stage. How's it going with Sidemen? Bring us up to date.
Yeah, and things are very good. I think we're, very fortunate. The guys are so kind of professional and brilliant at what they do that they make life very easy for everyone in the behind the scenes. Like, we've got everything running at pace now, whether it's the membership club Side Plus, our breakfast brand Best is launched into Tesco and heading out to other retailers around the world, which is super exciting. Sides Fried Chicken Restaurant opening up the 7th store this year in summer in August. We've got, XX Vodka, killing it, one of the top performers in Wetherspoons that's just flying out the shelves, had a 700% increase in sales in the first 2 weeks that we were in, but now it's just flying, going up and up and up, which is brilliant. And then beyond that, we've got, new, bigger and better content ideas that the team are working on all the time. A big potential, I don't know when this is coming out, but a big show that's launching soon that's going to be very different and disruptive, coming out onto the Sidemen channels. Totally new style of content, style of show and format. So
okay,
yeah,
is this an original, your own original format?
Exactly. So it's going to be a very different type of thing. And then, we're just constantly trying to push forward, build new ideas, new IP, embed the things we're doing. We also closed our VC fund, closed its first round of 10 million, I believe it is, a couple weeks ago. So that's going to hope for a second close at the end of this year, but we've done some really good deals already. I think we announced our first one with How About, which is like a social calendar app that's killing it at the moment. So yeah, we're just doing it already. Like it's funny what you can do when there's focus on one thing, which is the Sidemen. So yeah, all good.
Wow. Well, where to start? Let's start with the breakfast cereal.
Yep.
And how that came. Tell us the story, the background to that, because we're aware of lots of the other brands that you just mentioned and the brand extensions from the Sidemen, but the breakfast cereal was a real move into a new market for you.
Totally. I think for us, we see a world in which we can apply our level of social first, disruptive, creative thinking and application into any space whereby there's value to be truly made. And I think in cereal, we saw a sector and breakfast generally, that is quite shaken up, right? And that's for a number of reasons. One being that in order to get any level of economy of scale, you need big factories and supply to obviously cater to retailer levels and so on and so forth to keep costs low. So the balance of getting a cost-efficient product where you're competing against the Kellogg's and the big boys requires a real manufacturing heavyweight behind you. And so through that, we said, okay, well, we need to partner with the best in order to build something, ironically. And Mornflake, they've been doing it for 350 years, have huge factories out across the country. They are the epitome of cereal. They've been doing it literally for nearly 4 centuries. Mornflake have given us this incredible manufacturing capability that allows us to hit both the retailer demands, which obviously for anyone in retail is difficult. They have scaled, they can scale up, they can scale down. They're amazing what they do. New product development allows us to get creative with them. And yeah, it's the perfect partnership. And so I think Best has been able to work because of them, paired with the creativity that we bring around the brand, the marketing, the product itself. We want to do something that was basically best in health, taste, and price. So we landed a £2 product, which is very hard to do with a margin that works for retail and obviously for the brand owner, alongside a chocolate and caramel profile whilst being HFSS compliant. So that's like low fat, salt, and sugar. So it means it's as healthy as Cheerios. If you look at the labels at the top, same sugar content as Cheerios, but you've got a chocolate and caramel profile driving the way. So it's tasty and then something the kids will actually enjoy whilst also being healthier for them. So that's kind of the idea. And then also with that, I think we look at the world of raising money and helping causes and see that brands, if you can drive direct revenue for a product that people like, as well as giving back through some of those profits, that's a much cleaner way to make money than obviously asking for donations all the time. So 10% of our net profits are going to Magic Breakfast to feed like 200,000 hungry kids a day across the country. They do incredible work, and it's all about giving kids free breakfast who can't afford it. So yeah, that's a big part of what we do. And then beyond that, we're looking at big IP partnerships, heading into other countries, cementing our flavors, like again, really driving a product quality first and foremost. And that's why we had to work with the best. And it's trying to pair that with great manufacturing and then our ability to distribute on social. All these things come together. And I think it's created the success it's had. Sold 100,000 in its first couple of weeks. It's, on track to do 1 million quite soon. And yeah, it's just building and growing now, shaking around the world. So we're good.
Fantastic. Well, it's such a great story. And you talked about venture capital funding. Tell us a little bit about that. What's the aim of that?
Yeah, well, I think with the VC, it was an idea we had for a while now, where we said to the guys, like, look, you've got a good amount of cash from all the business, all the money that they've made through YouTube and through everything through the years, but that's sat there in a bank account. You've got brand deals that are paying you 50K, whatever it might be for a deal, whatever it is. And actually, you don't own any of those brands. So why are you promoting brands that you don't own a piece of? That makes no sense when you have the money to actually invest and support some of these businesses. So that's kind of the fundamental ethos behind it. That the Sidemen have the ability to add incremental value onto businesses that most VCs could never have, because they have audience and they have credibility, trust with the audience, and so on and so forth. So if you apply the level of connection that they have with their fan base to the world of startups, what a potential opportunity. And obviously startups, any brand would pay a lot of money to have the Sidemen back in them. But actually if the Sidemen own a piece of the company and they've invested in it, then that's a way healthier relationship. And also it means to the audience, rather than saying, oh, this brand's paid me a little bit of money to do this Instagram post, you can say, well, actually, we've put our own money into this brand and this is why we think it's so good. And then I think you'll see a healthy level of conversion, better trust with the audience, but fundamentally you'll see these brands go from strength to strength because they have real advocacy behind them, so much so they've put their own money into them.
So this is essentially going to be a network of new companies that are Sidemen part-owned.
Yeah, exactly. So the Sidemen are investing, they're going to own a piece of each of the companies, and then they're going to be basically supporting them through helping to promote, through helping to be advocates and ambassadors for the businesses. On a loose level, obviously they can't do it in the same way they would if they were, like with our Revolut did or anything else, but they're going to be helping and adding incremental value to every business that they invest in, because obviously they have an interest in making them successful and helping them to go on their way. So yeah, that's the kind of whole vision of the fund, starting with about 10 million. We're investing into pre-seed and seed businesses, anything that the Sidemen can get behind and actually that they love. And so far, we've done a few really good warehouse deals before the fund's even been raised. And yeah, one of those has been How About, social calendar app founded by an amazing couple of guys, killing it. They're up to I think it's something like 100,000 social calendar things a week being made on their app, ridiculous numbers. And that was, I think it's 4 or 5x since we even invested. So yeah, you see that this is a different level of potential. This
sounds like the Sidemen Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, right?
I mean, there's probably a show in it. There always definitely is a show in it somewhere.
There we go. You heard it here first, guys. So we had just been part of our event, which is fantastic, and on the Future of Digital Branded Content panel. We're all talking about the way the business is going this year. We've seen a huge explosion in digital branded content. We talked to certainly a lot of the broadcasters today. They've been talking about, that's the main focus for them, is to start moving away from linear, or certainly building away from their linear activities. How do you see the market developing over the next 12, 18 months?
Yeah, well, to your point on the linear, I mean, they have no choice, right? There's no money in it. There's no audience. Audience is declining at pace. Especially amongst the younger demographic, it's going to be very difficult for linear TV to survive in its current form. And I think they're going to have to realize that linear TV isn't the core of their existence. It's content, and content can be distributed anywhere and chase where audiences are, rather than what they think audiences should want, which is, in their view, often linear. And speak at various different TV events and speak to people in TV, and there's still this clinging on to a medium that's doomed to die one day quite soon, I think. But anyway, that's a tangent. I think the way that branded content is going to be developing is more towards in-housing of brands actually making content themselves and getting better at producing on TikTok in short form, because that drives most content now. It's about working with creators who are the best at what they do, and the brands that win are the brands that either jump on trends quickly or work with creators who are hot right now, doing that at pace and doing that at such a level that they're able to test, learn, try, fail, having a comfort in failing, but taking smaller bets so it doesn't matter. I think where we've seen a movement, right, is when I was at Lab Bible and other, I was at Lab Bible for like 1.5 years, 2 years, and Vice before that. And the movement away is from doing the deals with a Lab Bible or another, which, in reality, you're putting a lot of trust and a lot of risk, because these campaigns start at 50 to 100K, the cost goes up and up and up and up. You're spending a lot of money, and potentially it's not going to come back for you. Whereas actually, if you're taking that, let's say you did a 100K campaign with Lab Bible, right, for a couple of Instagram posts in the story, what could you get for that 100K if that was split between, 100 TikTokers that you paid £1,000 each? you're going to get infinitely more, right? Both in terms of content you can use for your own socials, content that's going to potentially hit millions of views, as well as just, general sort of validation and social proofing for wherever it is you're doing as a brand, because 100 TikTokers are talking about it. Okay, so it's like the logic for me is just out of step with the industry, and it's kind of playing catch up. And the brands that will win are going to be the brands that learn to move really quickly and adapt to this change, because it's the best opportunity brands have had in a very long time. We have brands, right? We have Sides, obviously, Bested, XX, and the levels of spend, as I was saying on the panel, you can spend 500, 200 pounds for a video today, and I can get 1 million views if it does well. Where else has there ever been that opportunity? So forget spending with publishers. Dare I say it, obviously, having been at many of them, forget spending with even the big creators in the traditional way. That's not necessarily going to work. But be creative about how you spend, and learn to take risks and spread bet more, because now's the time to do it.
Yeah, and that calls for a bit of bravery on the part of the brand, but equally, the digital branded content world is becoming maturer, right? I mean, it's moving at such speed, and the opportunity, as you say, to connect with millions of consumers in, the same day, immediately. Those brands that are agile, brave, and have employ a team of smart, social savvy marketers, they're the ones that are going to win.
Totally, they're the ones that are going to win, and the ones that don't are going to basically stay stuck overspending on things that aren't delivering. Like linear TV is a good example, right? As a medium which just doesn't return in the way that it once did. And I think it's how quickly can you see that the six-figure sums you're spending can be so better spent elsewhere if you're adaptable, smart, and if you plug into the culture and what's relevant today, and not being sort of stuck up on the formats which once worked. And again, like we know, brands take a long time to adapt, but I think, again, the ones that will move well, the ones that will move quickly, they're the ones that are going to really take off and carry on building.
All right. Jordan, I know you have to fly. Fantastic seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming on TellyCast. It's always a pleasure to see you. The best of luck with all the fundraising, everything else that's going on with the Sidemen.
Thank you so much, Justin. Yeah, pleasure as ever.
So my next guest on this week's TellyCast Brand Funded Entertainment Summit Special is a producer, and we haven't spoken to a producer so far on the show. Dominic de Terville is here. He's head of branded content and audio at Zinc Media Group. How you doing, Dominic?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Great to have a producer to talk about brand funded entertainment, because there's I think there's a lot of interest in this sector at the moment, and not many production companies that I know are doing particularly well in this sector, but that's something that you really specialize in. So be interesting to hear about the projects that you've been recently doing within brand funded entertainment.
Yeah, so we essentially kind of harness all of the sort of production company creative firepower we've got, and our sort of resources to offer the same creativity and production services that we do for commissioners and streaming platforms to brands, and that can take sort of various forms, and we do a lot of digital stuff as well. A lot of the digital content series or films that we make are in partnership with digital publishers. We work closely with a number of the news brands, including The Independent, for whom video has become a huge part of their strategy in terms of how they work with brands, people like Mail Metro Media. So we have developed lots of digital series and single films for people like that. I guess kind of one of the recent things we did for The Independent was a series with E.ON Next, the renewable energy part of the E.ON business, who wanted to create a series that was all about informing people that saving energy in the home has surprising benefits, as well as saving money and being sustainably conscious. So we cast Marcus and Misha, most famous as one of the families from Gogglebox, to show through a series of challenges that they set themselves the surprising benefits found when you save energy. So, for example, we had an episode all about entertainment where, the family weren't watching football on the TV. They had a no screens evening. Normally their kind of son's on his PlayStation, daughter's on her iPad on social media. So instead of doing what they normally do, they had an evening of entertainment without screens, played some really interesting and fun games like charades. And
did they survive without screens?
They did survive without screens. And actually, moreover, they found that actually it was really great family bonding time. Okay. And they had a great time together, where they're all ordinarily kind of in isolated activities. So that was a really kind of fun series that we developed with E.ON that worked really well. Just won Campaign Media Award a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
So that was fantastic. We made a single film for Saga ahead of the last World Cup, which was all about kind of how experience can have a legacy and how experience is everything to align with their kind of core messaging. And in that, we cast a huge football fan, Tottenham fan, and celebrated DJ Norman J. MBE to go on a journey of discovery and find people for whom, either watching or attending the World Cup final in 1966 went on to transform their lives. And we had some amazing contributors as part of that storytelling, including a guy who, at the age of 19, was seemingly randomly asked to be the team photographer. He wasn't a photographer at the time. He was working at the BBC in Archive, and went on to become a photographer, a very celebrated and award-winning photographer thereafter. So it was a really interesting series about how sort of moments and experiences can actually have a legacy and change people's lives. So we make lots of sort of digital content shows like that.
And that's really interesting. I mean, how do those clients, how do you get those gigs, basically? Because that's what a lot of producers are obviously desperate to know at the moment. That they're not getting the usual commissioning in the regular routes. I mean, is that down to your relationships, as you say, with the news brands, for example? Does a brand typically come in via the independent, for example, or how did Eon get involved in that, and how did you get involved with them?
Yeah, so the sort of start points are sort of many and varied, but you're right. Yeah, my background of sort of 25 years plus is in the commercial side of things as well. So I have a network of sort of publisher relationships, media owner relationships, kind of all of the major media agencies I know. So, from a business development, we're proactively going out there and telling people our story, sharing our credentials, showing the kind of huge equity that we have as producers of, not just the content that we make for brands, but at the same time we make Putin versus the West for BBC One, or we make Deborah James Bow Babe in her own words, which just won a BAFTA, which was an incredible story. So, our credentials combined with our network is what kind of really kind of benefits us personally as a company, because, as I say, we have, I guess, kind of the usual functions that production companies have, but we have a whole division dedicated to this space of brand and brand relationships.
And how long has Zinc Media been focused on the brand funded aspect of it? Did you come in to set up this function for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined just over 3.5 years ago, specifically to harness everything that we're great at and apply that to a new customer type. We traditionally had been making fantastic programs for broadcasters, but the same infrastructure that we have in terms of production, post-production, all of our kind of shared services are the kind of things that you need to be able to produce that content for a different type of customer as well, which in this case is brands. So I came in July in the midst of COVID to set up a branded content team at that time, and then shortly after that sort of took over our audio department as well.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's widening the funnel for new business, isn't it? Essentially, if you're going to really focus on brand funded entertainment as a complementary offer to your regular editorial focus, then the same skills are there essentially, other than having contacts and building those relationships. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, from a production perspective, the workflows are the same, the skill sets are the same. I guess working with brands, it does require different expertise. Brands talk a different language to producers often. So understanding the language of brands, understanding kind of marketing communications and how they're going to evaluate things, and the rigor that they put behind sort of data and analysis really kind of helps being able to almost be sort of bilingual in terms of the language of sort of TV and creativity and the language of brands as well. But yeah, in terms of actually making the content, the workflows and processes are exactly the same. It's just that you've got more stakeholders than you ordinarily have.
And you mentioned digital projects. We're seeing a lot more of that. We spoke to Bav at ITV, and we know that Channel 4 focusing a lot on digital first projects for brands as well. Sky as well, and mentioned that in their session earlier on. Presumably those projects are generally quicker turnaround, because brand-funded entertainment linear projects take quite a long time to get over the line, don't they? Do you seem to see more digital first projects being briefed out, and are they generally quicker turnaround?
I think a lot of the broadcaster on-demand platform digital projects are kind of briefed into those broadcasters. So I think anybody wanting to do something with Channel 4.0 or ITVX is going to talk to ITV and Channel 4, and they may or may not talk to the production community about kind of sort of working with them on those things. And yeah, I think just generally everybody understands the changing landscape in terms of how people are consuming media, and the importance of those platforms is huge. It's in a world where people are watching content generally on demand and streaming through services like Netflix and Amazon. The broadcasters obviously sort of really scaling up their streaming services as well on that basis. Yeah, there's definitely, I think, and again, it depends on the format type that you're talking about, because a long form show for ITVX will take just as long to produce as for linear broadcast. But when you're talking about short form content, then yeah, you can sort of move through the process quicker. So yeah, there's that, but then there's also kind of digital content that sits outside of the broadcast of VOD platforms as well. We're working with another partner. So we worked with the Department for Business and Trade and created a series called Big in America, which was a sort of first for LinkedIn in terms of made for TV style content on their platform. But we're now looking at how we would take another series of that and maybe do that as a kind of YouTube-led series. So again, depending on how you're doing things, there's potentially less stakeholders. Actually, with if you're going to distribute something like that on YouTube, then it becomes more about the kind of client and what they need, because there isn't a kind of editorial filter necessarily on YouTube. So yeah, there's lots of different ways of distributing content. As I say, we work with publishers who are significantly ramping up their focus on digital content in that space. But also at the same time, there's sort of more opportunity than ever before in terms of long form for TV. And we're working on more projects right now than we have done for some time.
Right, so you're seeing this as a growth area. I mean, as a producer, to all the other producers that are listening and watching this out there, do you see the opportunity in brand-funded entertainment growing over the next few years? I mean, obviously, you don't want to talk too much because you don't want more competition in this area.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you see it as a growing opportunity?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think there's a number of reasons why. But fundamentally, brands are more interested in sort of being part of the content, because the way that people are consuming content is different. People are consuming more content on demand. They are able to avoid kind of advertising more easily, have been for some time. But also, I think brands realize that content can be the most articulate way of communicating their values, their story, their purpose, and driving brand equity that way. So when you take that and combine it with the fact that the economic sort of landscape at the moment is such that TV ad revenue is declining, which means the commercial broadcasters have less money. So there's more interest from broadcasters in terms of working with brands, and not just about funding or deficit funding a show that they want, but actually brands can bring a lot of kind of marketing and promotional power to a series as well. So I think people have been saying this for a while, so there's always a reluctance about heralding a new dawn of kind of branded entertainment on TV, but it definitely feels like that at the moment.
All right, interesting. So you've just taken part in one of our panels, which is focusing on distribution and IP. Can you give us a couple of snapshots from that panel? What were the key takeaways from it?
Yeah, so key takeaways were kind of taking an objectives-led approach to getting into this space, understanding what you might need from a multi-market strategy or a global strategy, and spending the time in the planning phase, because you might need to reversion for different compliance rules. You might find that you need to factor in different timings for when content might land in different markets. So, if you need it to go out simultaneously in your key markets, then a market-by-market approach might not be right. You might want to work with a global news network or a streaming platform that can distribute the content at once in a single place. I guess kind of one of the other takeouts was really about kind of taking an editorial first approach as well. It sounds obvious, but if you put the viewer first and you focus on entertainment and find out find the best way to show up within that content. It's going to be more authentic, but equally it's going to be easier to distribute internationally, whether you're looking to sell it or whether you're looking to place it. So yeah, I think there are a lot of sort of key points around that, but I think sort of, you know, planning, understanding the objectives, and taking a viewer-centric approach is some of the key things.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's been fantastic speaking to you, and good luck at Zinc Media.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
So I'm here with Eddie Scott, who's creative director at Acast. How are you doing, Eddie?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for being part of the event. Great to have you here. So Acast, obviously podcast platform, but tell us a little bit about Acast for those who don't know about it.
Yeah, sure thing. So Acast is home to over 100,000 podcasts. Acast, the main role, what you'll mostly know Acast for is working with creators to sell sponsorship and ad slots. So the usual, when you usually listen to a podcast, the way you interact with the brand would usually be 60-second sponsorship or a 30-second ad. So that is what Acast at large do. My team's Acast Creative. So what we do is we work on the best brand partnerships with podcasts. So longer form content, so that could be episodes, that could be segments, but that could also extend to full 360 activations. So social media activations, live events, merch, print, anything that you could really imagine as brand partnership is something that Acast Creative has specialty in.
All right. Okay. So podcasting is really becoming much more crucial, I think, to the world of TV production in a way that TV production businesses can build their IP and start to own their IP, have the IP in the center of what they do, and then basically build not only podcasts, but also build out TV shows and dramas, unscripted, etc., whatever else that stories that they might like to tell from that central IP. But when it comes to brand funding, now we talked about ads, and you know we're all aware of the ads that some people skip, some people don't. But brand funded is all about integrating the brand much more into the content, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can you give us some examples of what brand funded content that you've done recently at Acast?
Yeah, sure. So I think like a first example I'd think of is an original podcast series we created for the Ministry of Justice. It was called A Prison's Guide to. We worked with like this leading insight that like when we think of what it takes to work in a prison, we often think of like bruisers and bullies and people who are prepared to essentially be violent, right? And this was the problem we came up across, and this was the problem that the Ministry of Justice came up against.
Oh, so it's recruitment, basically to help their recruitment of prison officers.
Exactly. So the Ministry of Justice had identified that in their audience, people had a bit of a misunderstanding about what the job actually entailed. So what we set about doing was making a podcast that was about how the key skill you need as a prison officer is actually empathy, is actually understanding, and is patience. So we recorded a podcast that went behind the brick walls, the barbed wire fences, and we spoke to 20 former prisoners and prison staff about the experiences of working in a prison, and we told an emotional and empathetic story about what it takes and also how you can genuinely impact people's lives. Something you don't really get in media, because when you see prisons, what you're more likely to see is a prison drama, right? Yeah, the results were like fantastic. So 13th on the Apple charts, selected for Guardian's Podcast of the Week, won a Campaign Media Award. But I think like what we were most proud of is that with each episode's release, there was an uptick in applications. So I think like that is a really nice example of how when you're creating a brand, you can tell a story that can be an emotional story or could be a story about empathy in this case, which I think is just like a really effective way to speak to an audience.
So, and that was produced in-house at Acast, was it?
So that was produced with Fresh Air Productions and Acast, one of Acast's production partners. So the way our creative team would work is that we would get a brief from a client through a media agency. We would then come up with an answer to that brief. Most of the time, that would involve a branded content collaboration with one of Acast's podcasts. But in this instance, as we were creating something from scratch, we worked with one of our production partners. However, the challenge when you create your own podcast is, of course, driving listenership to it, right? So the model that Acast have sort of championed and that we've activated numerous times over the years is to promote that podcast in existing podcasts. So we promoted that podcast across the Acast network we played full 4-minute clips in the likes of the High Performance podcast, Vicky Patterson's podcast, as a way to drive listenership, because we found that neck and neck, there are two means by which people find new podcasts, and they're neck and neck, which are recommendations from friends and hearing them in podcasts they already listen to.
Okay. That's an interesting point of podcast discovery, because obviously this is something close to my heart as well, when it comes to not only recording your podcast, but getting it out there, which is a real challenge. And often many people think, okay, it's easy. You've just got a microphone. You can sit down and talk to somebody. But actually, the vast majority of the time that I spend doing my podcast is actually promoting it. Once it's out there. But so tell us about the way that you're working with brands going forward then, because this is a brand-funded podcast is still sort of in its infancy slightly, I think. How do you see it moving forward over the next few months and years?
Yeah, absolutely. So is this as it pertains to brands creating their own podcasts, or like the whole spectrum, including
Everything?
content?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think going forward, what we found at Acast, like across the business, is that I don't think anyone really has a grasp on what a podcast is anymore, right? It used to be much more simple. It used to be a thing that was in the podcast app on your phone. Nowadays, people consume podcasts in so many different ways, in short form on social media apps, in YouTube. I think like a number of the biggest production houses have found that one of the main ways people are consuming their podcasts is just watching them on a TV, right? So I think like what the future for brand partnerships is campaigns that are active on all the different touch points where podcasts are live. So that means that having a social strategy, having a live event strategy, having a 360 campaign that can touch on every single piece of output that audiences usually relate to that podcast via.
So how do next generation content production companies work with you at Acast then? What are the opportunities for them?
I think like one thing I'd say is like, as like the medium of the video podcast grows, there's so much opportunity there. I think like we're only just seeing it like in its infancy now. I think there's so much that can be done with video production. So like what we've seen out in market is like the likes of the Fellas Studios building bespoke sets for their podcasts and having a video first approach where their goal isn't to get people to listen on their podcasting apps. Their whole goal is to get people to watch on YouTube and watch on video platforms. So my advice to a content production company would be that take that lead, would be that the video side of podcasting, the visuals of what you see on screen are going to be like a really, really important part of how people consume podcasts going forward.
All right, video first podcasting.
Yeah. I think I don't know if like the whole future. I think that can be a bit overstated. I think people will always want their podcast on the go, but the fact that there's such a large number of people watching podcasts just as a one-screen experience on their televisions, it shows that it's becoming a visual medium.
It's really interesting, the worlds of audio and video and the way that they're colliding, and social media is helping with that. It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the rate of change is absolutely insane, and like there's the amount of space to grow into is huge. I think like, I mean, you know, like the truth is there's a lot of people there who I don't think even think of them as podcast listeners, but they actually are. They think of themselves as watching YouTube, as being fans of YouTube creators or TikTok creators.
Yeah.
But they are actually fans of podcasters, and it's because I just don't think we know what a podcast is anymore. A podcast can be anything. A live stream can be a podcast. A lot of our fastest growing podcasts are streamers. So it's just like it's becoming quite an opaque space, but that in turn means there's so much opportunity to do new things.
And finally, for next generation production businesses that are looking at audio as well as video, how can they work together with you when it comes to bringing brands into those shows? What's the best way for them to approach that? Is it about getting a brand on side first, or is it about talking to you about an idea that they may have for a new show, or is it a case of they need to establish a show first before a brand might be interested in it? How does that work?
Yeah, so all of the above really. So we have a full creator team who work with our podcasts on growth and growth strategy. So if there's a podcast that has a lot of potential, it's something that our team would be happy to work on. But likewise, I'd say like the best way that we can collaborate is going out to market and making the case together about the potential in the space. And I think also like like innovating, like find what the next popular thing is going to be and bring it to us, because what we can do is monetize it. That's essentially what we're there for. So if you can, it doesn't have to become the next Diary of a CEO out the gate, but if you can find something and you can that has clear growth potential, then we're here to monetize it essentially.
All right. Eddie, thank you so much for being on TellyCast, and good luck with everything at Acast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So my next guest on this week's TellyCast Brand-Funded Entertainment Summit Special is Matt Campion from Spirit Studios. How you doing, Matt?
Very well, thank you very much.
Lovely to see you.
I don't know why I said thank you very much. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good, good. Straight off stage from the brand-funded podcasting session. So we'll talk about that in a second. Tell us what's up at Spirit at the moment. What's going on?
Oh, lots of things at Spirit. So we are, for those that don't know, we are a sort of a multi-studio business. So we make television, we make podcasts, we do branded content, and we also own and operate some of our own platforms. And currently we are in season 6 of the stand-up sketch show. We're making a series for A&E called Missing Presumed Dead, true crime series. We're doing some other television things that I can't actually announce, but are happening. And then in the podcast world, we're flying with a couple of really great titles. We run in Sickness and Health with the Buckleys, and Private Parts. Private Parts is now 8 years old, 7, 8 years old now, and we've just changed hosts, so it's in a new era. So that's quite exciting. And then in the brand space, we're doing lots. We're actually considering that the TV industry is in a bit of a changing state. At the moment, we're okay. We're having the right time.
And I know right from the early days when you were at Endemol, you were very much focused on interactive content, and that is really, it's in the DNA of Spirit Studios, isn't it? In the sense that I see you as very much a next generation content production company. Your focus on branded, your focus on podcasts, as well as more traditional linear TV, and also your YouTube channels that you own and operate. So let's focus on podcasting, because that was the basis of your session. For other producers, more traditional TV producers listening to the show and watching the show, is there any money in it?
Yes, yeah, there is, yeah. Look, I am from the world of television. I spent most of my time growing up in my career working across television shows and building that as a business. But we've always tried to look at, do you know what? We Peter and I, my business partner, we saw this coming a long time ago, and we always thought, what is the future? Like, there's got to be a point where linear drops off and something new happens. And so we probably set up too early, but what we wanted to do was always be on the forefront of what's happening, and you have to follow the money. So we've been through building YouTube channels, we've been through building Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. We've worked across all the platforms. Podcasting is something that we took a punt on maybe about 7, 8 years ago. We started, to begin with, as a pilot, we started our own podcast called The Mediaverse. Don't listen to it. And then off the back of that, because we were working a lot with Jamie Lang, and we used to work a lot with Made in Chelsea. We used to do a spin-off show for them. We decided to try having a go at getting into podcasting, but this was like 7 years ago. And I think over the years, we've really seen it growing up. In the first year, it did nothing. And then it took off and started really doing really great numbers. And in terms of the money, I would say it's akin to television in the fact that, as a TV producer, you're constantly trying to find a hit, right? And how many times it's your job to promote in the industry, us as businesses, as producers that are trying to find a hit. And in podcasting, it's no different. It's a case of, it is a crowded space. It's getting more crowded, but you see the memes about everyone needing a podcast. But actually, at the end of the day, if you've got the right talent, the right idea, and you have the right relationships, you can punch through. And I think one of the things that we found is that we have got a formula now, as in you do in other spaces. We found that we've invested in our own studio. We've got our own studio. We've got a multi-camera studio. We've got a team that film, record, manage, produce. They create content for social media. It's a proper marketing 360 machine. And I think if you can get that right, and that's a bit of a leap for a lot of people, but we've done it naturally as a journey, as a business, because that's kind of our interest. Then if you can get to that space, then and you can create a hit because you can, talent spot, and you're good at format and you're good at ideas, then there's definitely money to be made. I mean, we as a business, it's a big part of our revenue.
So that's podcasts, but obviously as a next generation production company, it's about IP, isn't it? So you own the IP that you're creating, so you're making them commercial success through podcasting alone. But that's only one part of the puzzle, isn't it? Now, then there's the opportunity, once you have a hit podcast, to take that onto linear or to bring that into the visual medium, however it is, through YouTube or whatever the other platforms you can monetize it on. Is that the way that you see the future for Spirit Studios then, to become this IP building machine that's focused on all of these multi-platform opportunities?
100%. That is our strategy. It's to create IP or to find IP that we can start in one of our studios, TV, podcasting, branded or social. And then from that, can we then create that IP in the other studios? So a good example of that is we produced a podcast. We run a mental health platform on social media that we've been running for a number of years with Jordan Stevens, that myself and Jordan founded in 2016, called I Am Whole. And I Am Whole has gone on to do some incredible things. Like we've put on concerts at the Roundhouse with like Ed Sheeran and Anne-Marie and Pro Green and Ella Eyre and Ollie Murs and lots of pop stars. We created Digital Detox Day where we got the brand Lush to back us, and we had Zoe Sugg, aka Zoella, on board. We created a bath bomb called IRL, in real life, that would people could buy, and that would raise money for mental health charities. And we even got Piccadilly. We created Digital Detox Day, and then on the day we launched, we got loads of talent and people in our pool to talk about it and post on social media. We even got Piccadilly Circus to shut off for that day. Now, that brand then created a podcast called The Whole Truth, and the podcast then got noticed by Channel 4 and Dave and became two different television series because of the format. So we made Comedy Against Living Miserably for Dave, which we did two incredible shows of brilliant comedic stand-ups, talking backstage about their mental health and then relating to it with their comedy on stage. We did that at Earth in Hackney, and they were great shows. Unfortunately for us, the series got cut short after 2 years because the pandemic hit. And we couldn't continue. We had some incredible comedians lined up. But then during the pandemic, Channel 4 took a punt on turning The Whole Truth into a music show where we had Arlo Park, Shay Lingo and Koji Radical at the Union Chapel performing their music tracks, but also talking about their mental health. Now that, and that went out on Channel 4. That's a great example of taking a piece of IP that started in digital, moved to podcasting, moved to television. We're currently working on 2 true crime projects that are moving from, one started as short form for one of our broadcasters here. I would name, but we haven't quite dotted the I's and crossed the T's yet on the contract, but we made it and it's gone out. And then now we have the money to make it into a long form series for international distribution. And then the other project we are producing at the moment a 10-part series for A&E, working with Quintus, the distribution and broadcaster business, where this is a project called Missing Presumed Dead. This is one that I can talk about, where we are making a 10-part true crime series, but we have ambitions to look at the short form and the podcast and the audio version of that, So if we can create IP that comes down in a sort of, I hate the word sausage because I don't eat meat, but like it's a sausage factory where like you put something in, you put all these ingredients in and they spit out different things. And I think that's the business. I think these days you have to be able to exploit IP. We've always exploited IP. When I was at Endemol, you know, we worked across lots of game shows like Deal or No Deal and Golden Balls. That was my job, was to work on the extensions, I see. But I think now as a business, that was always someone else coming to you saying, can we make money out of what you've already done? Now it's a strategy.
And let's finish on one of your newest IPs, which was announced last week, which is an audio drama, isn't it, called Raw? Tell us about that.
So Raw is a project that came to me maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Kelly Shirley, who used to be in EastEnders, and Kate McGowan, who's also an actress who brought the project to us, who's produced the show. They came to us, and it's a true story about child sex abuse, and it's something that Kelly has written about her own experiences in life, and you know, there are some changes in it. It's a sensitive subject, but at Spirit we have this mission, we have this purpose, we have this USP, which is about creating entertainment with purpose and trying to get people to think about what they're watching, and hopefully it will change a bit of the world, you know. And like, you look at impact dramas that are doing really well, like The Post Office, Mr. Bates versus The Post Office, and things like that. There are, you know, It's a Sin. There are those shows that can really feel really relatable to audiences and do really well. And that's the playground we want to be in, because I think we like making things that people really love to watch, but also feel from it. And so Raw came along, and Raw's a really difficult subject to tackle. Only 2% of child sex abuse cases get condemned in court, you know. And like, so with that in mind, they've stripped funding from the police, they've stripped funding from the courts. It's one of those things that, because it's very difficult to prove, it's one of those things that it becomes one of those things that you actually feel very passionate about trying to help. And so
it's expensive to investigate and prosecute in this area as well.
When you don't get results.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? So because of the fact that we've worked with I Am Whole, and we've got this track record of producing these big campaigns in mental health, I just felt really, really conveyed to kind of like go like to Kelly, look, I really want to help with this. I really want to make it. I think it's brilliant writing. We shopped it around a little bit to the commissioners a bit, and it wasn't sort of officially shopping around, but I started having conversations because I knew from the get-go that it was going to be difficult. And one of the problems right now, right, is that everything's becoming, the term glocal arrived a few years ago, but now it's really true in the fact that even our own British broadcasters, that everything has to, for everyone to invest through distribution and through the broadcasters, it's got to work, it's got to sell elsewhere. And that, for me, is sad, because it's going to become this like horrendous melting pot of the same content, where we've just kind of got these like global thrillers and like
content soup.
Oh man, it's like, it is really depressing, because but it will, you know, everything's cyclical, it will come back round, right? But with Raw, I just felt like I wanted to prove it. So we'd never made a drama in podcasting, so I put the team to task. You know, got a great guy called Will who runs our studio, and he's very clever with sound design and all that kind of stuff. And and Martin, we've got our head of scripted. You know, between us, we were like, is this worth us investing in? We'll do it. Let's do it off our own bat, or as the business, and let's see if we can build out a 6-part drama in audio and launch it and see what happens, and then see if we can start getting traction from the audience. Now, so today, I mean, I'm really proud of it. It's really good. And we did a launch. BAFTA really loved it. They did a launch for us a few weeks back. And then we're going to do the mainstream launch early next month. And we've already
got Children's Society is involved in it as well, isn't it?
So yeah, also that's really important to say, is the fact that we managed to get the Children's Society to back in and to kind of go, yeah, brilliant. We will be associated. So we're launching it with them, because what we want from this is try and change the stats.
All right. Well, it sounds, obviously a deeply moving subject, and it is something that I wish you all the best with. And hopefully you'll have success as an audio show, and who knows, we might see it on TV screen soon.
That's the plan.
All right, Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Been brilliant, and thanks for being part of the TellyCast Brand Funded Entertainment Summit.
Thanks, mate.
Now, I've bumped into Matt Ford, co-founder and CEO of CoLab X, a new business within the digital content space. Matt, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for being involved in the event. You worked with us on curating one of the panels and moderating it, which was great. We'll talk about that in a little second.
Great.
CoLab X, tell us about that. So it's still a young business and less than a year old.
We're less than a year old, yeah. We launched last summer. We're a content partnerships business. We broker content partnerships between talent, creators, and brands with a distinctive proposition that it runs on their own social channels. So it's not too dissimilar to what the digital branded content world is used to doing at the moment. If you did a traditional content partnership with a media owner like a Channel 4 or a Lab Bible, it's a very similar concept, but it's actually done directly on the talent channels and the talent platforms. Main reason being is that they often have bigger audiences than the media owners and the broadcasters themselves, and we can really bring the brands closer to the talent and really align the two together in a passion point, in an interest, in a purpose, or whatever it is that they do. So we meet a lot of talent, we meet a lot of creators, we understand exactly what they're looking to do, built a big database of all of that knowledge and information, and then when we get briefs from clients, from brands, or we're actually out there proactively pitching to them, we know the right people to put forward for the right brief. So we're matching brands, what their objectives are with talent and what their interests are.
Okay, so your main clients are media agencies who you're talking to, who are looking for innovative new ways to communicate their brands, campaigns, or whatever messaging they're looking for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, media agencies, brands as well, brands direct if they don't work with the media agency themselves. Anybody really who's like looking to create a content partnership. The media agencies have been really receptive to this because it's a new proposition in a space which is still developing. I guess it's digital, it's social. That's still developing. But what we offer is a new proposition within that.
Well, it was interesting what Jordan Schwarzenberger, who we were talking earlier to, and he was talking about the death of linear TV and really how that is really sort of taking a nosedive and becoming, in many cases, a little bit less relevant. Mm-hmm. Interesting point that you made about some of these content creators have actually got bigger social followings than a lot of broadcasters and a lot of bigger, in inverted commas, bigger legacy media brands. Yeah. So you're really taking that existing model, because you were at Channel 4, you helped set up their digital division originally. Yep. So you're really taking the learnings that you brought on board during that point and applying them essentially directly to creators' own media brands.
Exactly that. So we've done a big positioning piece specifically for the Sidemen to media agencies to get them to understand that the Sidemen are the biggest entertainment platform in the country. There's some incredible stats that when I was, doing some research into this positioning piece, that they average, 12.5 million views a video. The biggest linear event of the year was Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. That finale did 10 million views, and the Sidemen do more than that every single Sunday. So when you compare it to traditional TV in terms of viewership, they're obviously there. Last year, they did more views than Netflix and Stranger Things and The Crown on Netflix, all series combined. So there's, when you can position them in a place where, well, actually, they are the biggest entertainment platform in the UK. They're not just a creator network or a YouTube channel. It's actually, no, they're a big entertainment platform, and look at the audience that they're bringing. So they're on YouTube. They've appealed to a huge Gen Z audience. That's who they are.
So you've just moderated a panel for us at the event, the future of digital branded content. Mm. Talk us through who was on the panel and what were the key insights you took from it?
So the future of digital branded content, something that's been close to my career, I guess, over the last 10 years, having been one of the early pioneers, or being part of the early pioneers who actually developed this as a proposition before it even existed back in 2015. So when I was at Unilad, Lab Bible, BuzzFeed, we all developed a concept which became what digital branded content is now, which is effectively linear AFP to social audiences on social platforms. What was really interesting for me at the panel today, and what this, why I really wanted to chair this particular one, was where's it going now? Because it's been around for 10 years. There's still a lot of, I guess, questions around its brand safety. You know, what are the measurement metrics, and how can you actually define success of what digital branded content is? But also the lines are becoming more blurred between, since influencers and creators have started working with brands, what actually is digital branded content now? Beforehand, it was very clear a brand would pay to effectively commission a show on a media owner's social platforms that then would go out to the media owner's audience, and the media owner would guarantee a certain number of views against it. That's developed now. That model was, that's probably 5 or 6 years old. It's a different place. Brands are working directly with creators, creating content partnerships to deliver a very similar message and to get that ROI that working with them. So I wanted to put together a panel which had legacy media owner. So in this instance, that was Lab Bible, and to call Lab Bible legacy media owner is,
quite controversial.
Quite controversial, but in this space, because they did it from inception and they basically built this industry. So we had LA on the panel from there. Had Jordan Schwarzenberger on the panel, who's manager of the Sidemen, because it's them and doing what they're doing now, and then the future of brands working with creators is really important to see where that's going. And then in the middle of those two was Rupert Britton, who is head of creative strategy at Publicis. He was representing brands, so I wanted to get an insight from him, because he's talking to brands all the time, big blue chip brands, deciding where they spend their partnership money, or recommending where they should spend their partnership money. And he could give the voice of the brands and what they're looking for from an agency perspective, media agency perspective, to then recommend that their brand spend in that way.
And he's got to be looking at what's next, right? Exactly what the panel's focus on.
Yeah.
Is how do you communicate those brand messages through social creators and social brands directly, and how that's changing, where that's going to be in a year's time.
Yeah, exactly that. His role, very much, you should get him on the next one of these, he's still here I think, is to kind of look at what's happening in that space, innovative ways in which brave brands can spend their ad dollars. Not all of them are going to do it because it doesn't fit with their objectives, or they might want to be still a little bit more brand safe and take less risks, and that's fine, but many of them do, because the positives are that's where the audiences are. If they want to reach younger audiences, they are obviously spending most of their time on social media, and the GWI chat earlier on today just proved just how much time they are spending on all the different platforms, and it was we're backed up by data, and that's really where they are. So brands, if they want to be in that world, they want to appear to they want to reach those audiences where they spend their time, then digital branded content is just a great way of doing it, because it's the other way is advertising, or specific like traditional influencer deals, which is they're often very much like, here's a product, I like this product, go and buy this product. Advertising is effectively the same way, but you're just buying the ad space on the platforms themselves. This is where you can get closer to the editorial, closer to the creator, closer to the publisher, to really tell that story of the brand, and it's not necessarily going to be a product sell. But what it can do is build a big audience that the brand can then retarget with more direct messaging to then deliver that product sell, if that's what they want, if sales is an ROI that they're interested in, and most of them are at the end of the day. But what this does is it's awareness. It builds that awareness piece. It kind of, alongside that, if you're telling the story in the right way and it's entertaining content, there's a bit of brand love there. So it does quite a lot of different jobs for a very good price point, I'd say, when you compare it with other forms of branded content, like linear.
And because content creators are actually doing the production themselves, as much more value is coming through that, because they don't have a production company sat there with hugely expensive crews, and it's literally, in many cases, it might just be one individual or with a phone, or it might be a very small production team based around a creator.
Yeah, exactly that. I think, but there's such a range when it comes to creators. Some will just be doing a lot of self-shot stuff on their phones themselves, and some will have fairly big production teams around them that are making long form formats for YouTube that are meant to be viewed on a big screen, on a TV screen. like the Sidemen have an incredible production team around them, and like really professional setup and stuff. So the range is really different. But when you're speaking to brands about budgets, and then you can have a conversation around, well, you're a media agency, you're looking to buy media, then you don't need to put 30-40% of your media spend against production. You can put all of that against the media and guarantee more views, more eyeballs, more reach. So you can take that away immediately, and suddenly you're going to reach more people because you're not spending some of that money on production. So it makes it very cost effective and a very attractive way of creating content with people who are really influential, because they will listen to them, they'll follow them. Arguably, they're going to listen to them more so than they are a platform, or arguably more so than a media owner or a publisher on a platform. Like when the media owners or publishers are publishing stuff, you're probably watching it because you enjoy the content or you enjoy who's in it. And that's exactly what the creators are. That what makes them so influential, which is why it's such a good thing for the future.
Well, I'll watch CoLab X with interest over the next few months, Matt. You know, obviously very exciting new business for you. Congratulations on that, and look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing with the Sidemen and various other clients very soon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded at the TellyCast Brand-Funded Entertainment Summit in association with 53 Degrees North Media at Advertising Week Europe in London. For more videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, just hit the subscribe button below. We'll see you next week for another show.